You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For the Republic, a love letter to Qimir. I mean, a love letter to Star Wars animation. We are back here to talk about Teach/Corrupt, the newest episode of The Acolyte. We got the full crew here, but we are not alone. Our guest this week, she's been on before. It's Noor-Hal. How are you?
Hello there. Thank you again for having me, guys.
Here with the full crew this time because I wasn't on the full episode last time because I had a last-minute scheduling conflict. But the full crew is back here to talk about The Acolyte. So we haven't had you on since Mando. It's been a while. You were big into Dinbo, so now of course we have to have you on the episode where a new ship, the sparks are starting to fly.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest, when I was watching this episode, and I know we're gonna talk about it, but there was a moment that, oh my God, I wish Leslie Headland had directed a specific scene of The Mandalorian. I'm talking about the Living Waters.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, we need that with Pedro, man. Like, come on now.
I mean, he's doing Gladiator 2, like, so I feel like he's kind of getting himself in the vibe to do something like that, really. Maybe for the Mando movie, like maybe. I mean, I think they're filming that now, but like he might do pickups or maybe even season 4. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
I still need to see the first Gladiator.
I still need to see the first Gladiator as well.
Oh,
thank God I'm not alone.
You guys are gonna have it's great.
From what I've seen, from what I've seen of it, it looks phenomenal.
I can't wait for this. It's gonna be a good one. But since it's been a while since we have you on, what have you thought of the show so far? What do you think of the controversy of the week that's been happening every single week? Like, what have been your thoughts so far?
Oh Lord, well, I've always said about Star Wars is that, especially we've been blessed to be living in this era of Star Wars, having so much material, name it, live action, animation, books, comics. I mean, we've been well fed. But what I think about The Acolyte, I've been pleasantly surprised. I was like, hey, I'm gonna watch it, especially because what I heard before the series started was that, hey, it's before the prequels, but between the prequels and the High Republic. So it is interesting to see, hey, we are discovering these new characters and seeing the Jedi in, I don't want to say maybe the dawn of that like golden era that we found out of the High Republic. And I admit it, I'm behind on the books for the High Republic, but that's on me because because stuff happens. But but so far what I've been reading, I've been enjoying it so much. So when I found out, Vernestra is going to be there, we're still having some of these characters. And of course, we know Yoda is still there. Mm-hmm. But I have been pleasantly surprised. And of course, there's going to be polemics. There are going to be controversies about the content and what have you. But I feel like it's a Star Wars. Somebody defined Star Wars as a restaurant where you have this different type of foods, and maybe you favor more Ahsoka or Mandalorian or Andor, but hey, it's okay. You might not like this is not your jam, and that's fine. But of course, to understand that and leave others to enjoy,
don't attack the chef.
It's a struggle.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, what's been heartening though is like in terms of like, because I think Screen Rant did like an article just yesterday that basically showed The Acolyte was like is the second most successful Star Wars show in terms of data, like the only show that's Yeah, which is a surprise because like you hear people talk about like Obi-Wan on social media, and oftentimes the discourse around that show seems to be that it was like kind of an underrated show that more people, not a lot of people watched it, and yet clearly the opposite is very true.
That kind of surprised me because it felt like such a blip on the radar. Like it was like 5 weeks, and then because we had half the show in like 6 days.
Yeah,
so it is kind of crazy that it's still the number one. But like when you think of how hyped that was, it does make a lot of sense. And this doesn't shock me that it's the second most because people are talking about it, whether it's positive or negative. It's garnering interest and it's garnering all this stuff, like all this engagement. So that's what the studios want, is they want that engagement. So if they see that, they're like, all right, it's a success. So if your goal with this was we're gonna campaign it so it doesn't get a season 2, it's like, I don't think that's happening, buddy. I think you lost.
I don't know if that's how that works.
Yeah.
I have. Speaking of, I've got my theories of a season 2 could
and
be going.
Leslie had an interview pretty much saying that she's got so many plans for it and she hopes it's happening. So I feel like if they're that out in the open about, yeah, we think a second season's happening, it's probably happening. With like Book of Boba Fett and with Kenobi, it was always like, we hope we get a season 2, or like, we hope, like it was always like, I sure hope so. This one, it's like, yeah, so in season 2, I have a bunch of plans, but we got to see if it gets greenlit. So it's like, the way they're talking about it seems a bit different for me.
Yeah, like there's more like.
And if I remember, it was always pitched as a multi-season show, so they probably have it in the plans anyways.
It's interesting as well because I did read an interview where Leslie said that the storyline here will end definitively, as in there is a definitive end to the storyline here. So maybe the characters continue into a different storyline, and like whoever survives or whatever, because that's actually a genuine question mark of like who is actually going to survive this show. But I do kind of wonder if like maybe given that this is a High Republic show,
I not find out.
Yeah, but like this is the thing. I wonder, and I don't want to jump too ahead in terms of like the episode's content, but I do wonder if maybe with the second season, kind of like with the High Republic books, we could jump back in time as opposed to going forward and focus on a different character. Because there's some stuff here with a certain character, Vernestra, that has me kind of wondering, yeah.
And a little suspicious there, Vern. What are you doing?
She's sus.
She's not a Sith.
She's not a Sith. No, she's not a Sith. She knows something, but she's not a Sith.
Like I can't believe that theory was floated around. Like
I have thoughts.
Yeah.
I don't think she's a Sith. I do think the credence of if Qimir, we're jumping way ahead here, but if Qimir being a Jedi is him telling the truth, I think her being his master theory makes a lot of sense. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
He didn't say when he's talking about the scar, incidentally, he didn't say a Jedi did it. He just said someone who threw me away. So
you never know.
There's a lot to play with. But yeah,
I'm very very suspicious. Because you mentioned Leslie Headland, though, Don, I did want to quickly bring up before we get into it. Last week we had Maggie Lovett of Collider on to talk about last week's episode. She did recently have an interview over on Collider with the one and only Leslie Headland. So first of all, go ahead, check out last week's episode if you haven't yet, and then go check out that interview. They had a great conversation, and it was great getting Maggie's perspective on the show and getting to see this interview so quickly after it happened. So I don't think we meant to time it this way, but we're planning weeks ahead. Like, yeah, you'll be on for episode 5, and then that happened to be the one where everything happened. So we got some big stuff, and they talked a lot about a certain someone in the water with someone else. All right, so before we get into that, we do have a segment on this show that we like to have a little fun, and we call it the Jedi Archives.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
I almost clicked the wrong soundbite, so it was almost. It just would have fit.
Andrew, we already had an attack on a Wookiee like 2 episodes ago.
I know. But this is essentially, if you're new here, this is our podcast Hall of Fame, pretty much. We each nominate something Star Wars adjacent, and we put it up to a Twitter poll. So you, that's right, you, the viewers and listeners, get to decide who or what goes into the archives each week. Last week, we had a stacked lineup. We had 2 Fallen Jedi. We had a wonderful training video, and we had another legend story continuing the trend in recent weeks. I sent this to Conor and Don that it was literally a 3-way tie. So I left it up to the random wheel generator, and that means that our newest inductee is Jackie. My pick is in the archives this week. Conor, your now twice has not made it in.
Yeah. I just sent you my new pick. So you can flash it up on the screen. I sent it to you on Discord.
Ooh.
It is the clone sergeant from the Star Wars game, Star Wars Tactics.
I remember seeing things like these, but I never had anything. So this is Conor's nominee for this week.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a big gun.
Yeah.
That's a sweet.
I was just like, I need something new, and I'm like, Star Wars Tactics would be perfect.
Did you
That's
play
you,
this?
dude.
'Cause I remember seeing this game, but I never played it.
Yeah, Don, did you play, or Noor-Hal? Did
I
either?
know this is my first time.
What?
No, I haven't. I didn't even know about this.
You're alone at the panel here, sir.
I need to. I need to indoctrinate you guys into this. It's fun. It's like a wind up. It's like a wind up, like bad, like almost like Risk in a way, like a wind up Risk.
Figured.
Yeah,
I have a Star
I don't know how
Wars
to
Risk.
describe it.
I have
Though.
Star Wars Risk. I don't have. I didn't have this Star Wars Tactics thing, but that kind of makes a lot of sense. That's cool.
Yeah.
I want that blaster. That thing's huge.
Looks cool.
So my nomination again, the restraint to not go with anything related to the Stranger this week. But my nomination is actually this that I picked up the other day. It is Star Wars A New Hope manga coloring.
Wow.
My girlfriend actually has gotten me into coloring in my spare time. And I was just like, you know what? I need something to do on the 4th to relieve some stress. And just like the art is insane. Like, look at this picture of Luke right here.
Nice.
We've got where's the 3PO I started? We've got, good old
nice.
droids.
Oh, that's so cool.
My dudes.
I am not an artist by any means, but like it's got so much character to it. And hold on, you got you got Leia, you got Luke,
Wow.
you got so.
That's
Let me see if I
really
can
cool.
find Han and we got this with I think that's Luke again. Like I just love the designs of it, and it's weirdly reminded me that I need to finish reading the High Republic Edge of Balance manga, and I have a bunch of different like manga adaptations of some of the books. Like I have the Lost Stars one, I have the Guardians of the Wills one, I have the Princess of Alderaan one. So I got to read them at some point, but I am nominating this week because I think it's cool and it's relaxing, and you get
It looks relaxing.
little anime Han Solo, which is just.
I was gonna say I'm glad you mentioned Anime Han Solo because like the dude's face is just like perfect. It's just, that's immediately when my eyes went. I was like, that's like
I randomly opened up to the Binary Sunset. Just
wow.
Yeah.
that goes hard.
That's cool.
goes. This is gonna take me several weeks.
I was gonna say the manga is next. The phase 2 manga is next on my reading list. High Republic backlog. After I finish Path of Vengeance. Incidentally, Path of Vengeance takes a hell of a turn in the third act. What a surprise, Captain Scott. Yeah, really, really good stuff.
To segue off, what do you got this week for us?
Okay, so I am gonna do a bit of a repeat nomination there for this week, and I'm gonna nominate Basil again. Simply because he's just, he's such a cool little dude. I love
it. Shined in this episode.
He kind of
he's
shone in this episode. I could not nominate him. Watching him doing his little like fighting poses, like what, and just like the little the fact that he just like bum rushed May and just like stomped on her foot, which was just so funny. Such a much needed reprieve, much needed injection of comedy into an otherwise very dark episode where you have like a whole segment where a Jedi Master is just completely grieving losing everyone. But Basil's great. I love that Leslie had the guts to put like this like really quirky, funny, very kind of like Star Warsy type alien just there and just have him just cause hijinks. It was great.
Yeah, that little segment where like he's like trying to restore Pip was awesome.
Yeah.
Aww.
Poor Pip.
And then he got factory reset.
He got Lola.
I know.
Andrew, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how sports teams do Star Wars nights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could those be potentially, I'm not saying they could, but could they be possibly nominated into the archive?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, they can.
I'll keep that for later.
I think I figured what your next week.
I know because I think the Phillies are hosting a Star Wars night someday, and
oh,
I've been meaning to go to one. I need to figure
out
how that
when game goes.
The team does one,
but if this guy does well,
do it,
and they win, he might.
Bryce Harper's going into the.
Oh my God! I haven't seen your.
I thought you were going to be like, oh, yeah, Phillies Star Wars. And I was like, nope, Bryce Harper going into the archive.
No. It's got to be him.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah. He's a podcast mascot at this point.
Oh, yeah.
See, I should have nominated this but it was honestly too much of a deep cut. I don't know. So, like, obviously.
I nominated a coloring book, Donovan.
Yeah. But like, this is like
action figure.
This is just like a misspelling. This is so obscure simply because I made a tweet about it. So obviously, Noor-Hal and I are football fans. Yes. The Euros are on at the moment, and like literally, we're recording this just after the France-Portugal game, and I'm sorry to bring that up, Noor-Hal, but there was this is an honorable mention. But there was this misspelling. Someone misspelled Cristiano Ronaldo's name as Mistiano Pinaldo. And I did a tweet saying, why does Mistiano Pinaldo sound so much like some Star Wars fans' favorite glup shitto?
It sounds so much.
It sounds like a Clone Wars character that George Lucas would have named after like Ronaldo.
Yeah, he would have showed up at I think he would have showed up at season 3 or something.
Yeah,
I found out yesterday I was on Wikipedia and I found out Prince Lee Char from the Water War arc is named after Charlie the Tuna.
Really?
What?
Yeah, that was the name origin.
That is very Star Wars.
That is very George. Yeah. But anyway, Noor-Hal, do you have something for us this week?
Okay. I'm going to go a little bit into the sequels.
Oh yes.
And let's add Matt the radar technician into it.
Yes.
Or I mean, since we have our dark side boy, let's bring an iteration of Kylo Ren.
Andrew reminds me. Maybe I'm just tripping here, but I could have sworn Matt the radar technician was nominated at some point.
He was not.
He was not.
I don't think so.
I'm not affecting myself then. All right.
Noor-Hal, you this is the first time nomination with Ben
in the shower.
Ben Solo. I still love the bit where he impales. He just impales the one person and just says, "Okay, boomer."
Yeah.
God, I gotta watch.
Love it.
That's so good.
That was a time, man. So our nominations this week, we've got New Hope manga coloring book. We've got Basil again. We've got Matt the radar technician, and we have this friggin' thing. This giant thing from a game that I never play, but I need to because
say hello to my little friend.
It's really fun.
So once the episode drops, a couple hours after the episode drops, we will have this poll up. And don't forget to vote because it's fun each week. And you can decide who goes in. It won't be a literal coin flip deciding it next week, hopefully. So go ahead, choose that nomination, and check back here next episode to see who goes into the archives next week. Now on to the episode itself. So we start off right away. I like how it kind of mirrored the first time we see Osha, and we see her just waking up, and we're like, oh, where is she? And we see like this weird, like kind of Sith cave. There's like a hot tub at some point.
There's only one bed.
Yeah, there's only one. Oh yeah. Didn't even notice that.
Wow.
Steamy in here.
Very steamy.
She walks out.
I don't even think the hot tub could help.
No. But she like kind of notices that her like wound on her side had been healed already.
Mm-hmm.
And she walks outside and we see a planet. And immediately I text the group chat and I'm like, is that fucking Octo?
I thought the same thing. Like, what?
I was like, hold on, we got the mountains. It looks just like it. It didn't have porgs.
I love how it just the title card was unknown
planet. Like they're hiding it for now. And now Leslie
that made me think it wasn't Octo.
It isn't Octo. However, I don't believe her. It might be. It might not be, but right now I don't believe her.
I feel like if it was, we know.
I feel like if it was Octo, she would have put it in. They would have put it in the caption.
Or there would have been some visual reference to something.
Or maybe it's gonna be like some kind of Cordovan Moravan thing.
Maybe.
Ooh.
I do like the idea of it being Octo and having a planet that was like the origins of the Jedi have fallen to the Sith at some point.
Well,
I like that concept a lot. Like, they have the dark side cave.
Has the cave that Luke is is scared of in Last Jedi. So there is plausibility there. I, however, am a little partial to the idea that this is actually the planet Baldemnik from the Darth Plagueis novel. I have it pulled up as well. Thank you, Wikipedia.
I was like, what's the name of the planet? What's the name of the planet?
And the thing that makes me think it
will not be a trivia question.
Okay.
The thing that makes me think it's Baldemnik is the Cortosis, is the vein of what looks like Cortosis in the wall, because that was the main thing that kind of made it important. And Cortosis is quite critical to the show right now. They're using it in really interesting ways. I love that we got a confirmation that it was Cortosis, like on screen. Like it was just really cool to like delve into that. Yeah, like Leslie Headland's like really into legend stuff. Like she's done a really good job at like pulling from different legends. Like
Don, she hates legends. That's what the internet told me.
Yeah, this is secretly a massive conspiracy to like just completely erase any possibility of legends making it in there, and also cancel the
space witches are going to erase legends or something. I don't know.
They're gonna undermine Anakin, Connor. They're gonna just like ruin Anakin's.
They're gonna undermine Anakin. Again,
they're gonna make him less special somehow.
Again,
didn't you see the part in episode 3 where Mother Anastasia looked directly into the camera and said Darth Revan is not canon anymore?
Oh my
God! I thought she said fuck Anakin.
Oh, she said that too. She said that Skywalker kid not important anymore.
You know, I love the fact though that like there was like we've seen just the complaints this season just like get weaker and weaker, and now the minute that Manny Jacinto seems to have taken his shirt off, all of those people seem to have gone, I got nothing. I got nothing.
I got several things. Yeah. So we continue on. She's like she sees Qimir walking. Starts following him, and then my life changed, ladies and gentlemen. Because he slowly someone tweeted like, "Oh, we got to see shirtless Qimir this episode if he really needs to get redeemed." And it happened, and then more happened.
His skin dipped.
He sure did. guys, come on now, like. All right,
Dude's a specimen. Like
dude is
that's
a
all I gotta
specimen.
say.
Yeah.
Like Manny Jacinto is like killing it on every front, man. Like
This is like plus 10 of like could you just put on a cowl or something?
Oh,
like,
There you go. I thought immediately of this scene is like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
And he did as well. Like I kind of like the attention to detail that the first time we see him, he's wearing like a dark cloak. He's wearing his Sith outfit, and the next time we see him, he's putting on a white robe because just as like, and it's really good attention to detail because just like he is now challenging Osha's, and thus the viewer's perception of him and the Jedi. We're seeing that visualized in the costume design because
makes
like now he's wearing
welcoming, more trustworthy,
more friendly. And it's like, and you mentioned Maggie's interview with Leslie, and one thing that's really kind of I find really interesting about what she says about this is that he doesn't lie to her here. He's not manipulative, at least not consciously. Like he's being straight with her about how he feels, and it's a really interesting contrast to how he is with May. Compared to how he is with Osha, because with May there was this distinct power imbalance of like, oh no, you're the pupil, I'm the mysterious master. You don't get to see my face. You don't know anything about me. I'm gonna keep you at arm's length so much.
Now it's literally like the polar opposite.
Yeah.
Oh
no, you get
May, I can't see my face. I'm just naked. Like. It's like, oh, if you aren't going to join me, could you at least put my clothes back on? And we're like,
yeah, I was like, geez,
and
you're a confident guy.
And that's what sounds really interesting because we have both May and Osha look the same. And we saw that at one moment, and Osha tried to pass as May, but they are the different person. So that's a very valid point. What you said, Andrew, is that with May, he had her at arm's length, didn't show his face and stuff. Whereas with Osha, he's opened. So that's interesting. That's interesting as an area to think about.
And he has a retort for everything Osha says, and it's like he's wrong, but like he makes it sound pretty convincing. A point what he's doing. It's like I would describe this as like a almost like if we saw. Let me try to work. If Revenge of the Sith was like an 8-episode series, this would have been like a whole episode dedicated to Palpatine just starting to twist the knife for Anakin. Just like, the Jedi can't give you this power, or like, and just start planting the seeds there. Right away, it's like, why do you keep referring to yourself as a Jedi? Like right off, like
and preying on those. I won't say insecurities, but like stuff she hasn't felt as strongly of. She's not. Her convictions aren't really there.
Things she hasn't fully admitted yet.
Because she hasn't been able to touch the Force for like whatever reason, and I think kind of like what we're seeing here, because we kind of delve into it a bit more later on, but like we're seeing how she has such unresolved feelings of anger, of grief, of loss that the Jedi were never able to help her process, perhaps because of how they kind of teach you to tamp those emotions down, which we kind of see sort of manifest a little with Soul later on, but it's very kind of like clear that she never was able to kind of like she was never allowed to process those feelings. And what Qimir is starting to do is he's starting to give her the avenue to channel those abilities, which is really interesting. And I to just quickly comment on what you said about like him bringing up the Jedi, it adds another layer to the tragedy that he makes that point of like, oh, why do you love these Jedi that can't give you that love back? And it's really interesting, and it's sad that he says it because he may very well believe that, but the audience have seen that it's not quite that simple, because Daphne Keane obviously mentioned in the previous interview that she played Jackie like she had a crush on Osha. And I feel like that's very relevant that she said it, because Jackie is very supportive of Osha. Jackie repeatedly I think had Jackie survived the encounter on Kofar, she might even have like done what Qimir is now doing for Osha in terms of like helping her to kind of process everything that she's lost, because she says, you know, we're defined
that's
for
just
what we
Star
survive.
Wars in general, dude.
Yeah, Jackie is the Qui-Gon in this scenario. Like she could have, like,
it rhymes.
Yeah, it rhymes.
It really is. I mean, literally when Jackie
it.
died, it is literally the way that scene is staged. And we had so much to talk about last week that I didn't even think about it. It's staged kind of like what happens with Qui-Gon, because Jackie jumps ahead. Saul can't get involved because his saber is on the fritz, and he has to watch basically as Jackie is killed in front of him. It's the complete reverse. The Master has to watch the Padawan die, whereas in Phantom Menace, it's the Padawan watching the Master die. Yeah. And both cases, it's tragic because like this figure could very well have prevented what's more than likely going to be a seduction to the dark side.
Both killed by a new mysterious figure.
Yeah, with 2 blades as well.
1,000 years.
With 2 blades. Shit. Yeah, and what you mentioned is really interesting, because what the exchange that we saw with Osha and Qimir, all the retorts and all the like the questioning that Qimir brought to Osha. Of course, right after the episode, we saw people yelling, manipulation! He's manipulating her. And I saw that Leslie made that point. It's like, and it could make sense at a certain extent, because I don't think that's his perspective on what the Jedi are, based on his experience. And it all comes back to from a certain point of view, from his perspective. So some people might say, he has a hidden agenda. He wants to bring Osha to the dark side, but maybe it's based on his experience. He think, they abandoned it. It kind of reminded me a little bit when Maul faced Ahsoka. It's like, hey, we're just two Padawans that were, or 2 apprentices that were abandoned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good comparison, Noor-Hal, because like literally Maul, just as Maul was thrown away by his master, by Sidious, and now is trying to like in that show is sort of trying to undo or at least sabotage his master's plan out of spite. I kind of feel like that is relevant to Qimir, because like I've said it for like weeks. I still think he has a Sith master out there that he wants to be free from, and I don't think that counts towards manipulation. I think he absolutely wants Osha's help in taking this Sith master down, and this is what I was alluding to earlier. Because we obviously, when we see him derobe, as it were, you see a very distinctive scar on his back.
Oh, sorry, wrong picture.
It's okay. We'll take it,
dude. I feel like you're allowed here.
And I feel like and again, maybe what I'm describing is manipulation, but it's like, it feels like with Qimir, he didn't really like manipulate her in the sense of like what we would think of it. He just kind of like nudged Osha along to sort of just be like, what are your true feelings on this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's
he's
like,
definitely saying things from a Darksider's perspective. And there's definitely things where he's like, they weren't your friends, or they weren't going to be your friends, that are just like straight up like fucking lies. And then there's like, just try the helmet on. Just try it on.
The helmet thing was a bit.
But it's also like, again, a lot of this could be from his perspective, because if he's telling the truth about being a former Jedi, a lot of this makes sense. And if his master is someone that we're thinking that may have a purple light whip, then you can see kind of whereas Vern's kind of not standing, but her principles and the way she holds herself as a Jedi. Whereas in the High Republic book, she's this child prodigy. She's very adventurous. She goes outside the box. Her light whip was looked down upon because it had some ties to the dark side back in the day. Funny how that works. And now you see her just needing the approval of the council, quick to throw on judgment, quick to just like very by the books, very
talking
like
about and
awkward.
not interfering, but involving herself in politics. It's like, what are we doing here, Vern?
Talking with, we see her, the first thing we see her is talking with this senator, like, oh, there's going to be some kind of like examination of the Jedi, and she's, oh, we can't have this get out. It's like, oh, what are you hiding? And she's slowly becoming more of the, the Mace Windu, the Kiadi-Mundi, the, all those characters in the prequels that were very by the books kind of prequel. What you think of the prequel era Jedi, where they kind of
what are we doing,
lead their way. Yeah,
what happened?
So it's sad to see, and I think we're gonna learn a bit more about why that's the case. And I think if that reveal is she used to be Qimir's master, I don't think she's his Sith master. But if that was the reveal, it starts to make some sense. I do want to, real quickly though, I did want to bring up that StarWars.com confirmed that Vernestra's starfighter was named after Imri, her Padawan from the High Republic books, which is just that. And I mean, that wasn't said on screen, but like, that's a great nod. And then her little quip about, I get sick when I go in hyperspace.
That was really cool.
She says, I find it unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to know is, like, are we gonna because I doubt she's gonna stay on Kofar like after this. So I wonder, are we gonna see something like that in one of the next 2 episodes? Maybe like she gets a vision or something, and maybe because the Force. I've only read because I'm gonna put my High Republic hat on here of honesty. I have only read in terms of Vernestra, I've read Out of the Shadows. I never read any of the middle grade books from Phase 1. I read the Phase 2 ones, but not the Phase 1. So I've only got one Vernestra adventure for frame of reference. But so she usually gets visions of things, right? The Force shows her things.
From what I understand, yes.
Yeah, which kind of makes me think,
remember
is she
that
gonna be shown?
Yeah, that's the one I read as well.
But
yeah, with Reith, Silas, and Comac Vetus,
there was something in Out of the Shadows that I remember something similar to that happening.
Yeah, me too.
So from what I understand, she sees visions. It could be people talking to her from the dead. It could be premonitions. It could be various things. So I mean, it would be kind of uncomfortable for her to go into hyperspace and be like, "Oh, is it going to happen again?"
So, like, is she going to get shown what happened on Brendok? Like, that would be kind of interesting. Hashtag what happened on Brendok.
Hashtag what happened on
Brendok. I feel like next week's episode's going to be the flashback.
It will be because we've got the same director as episode 3, and I kind of have noticed like they've been very practical in terms of like directors and shooting teams. Like the first 2 episodes had the same director. Both episode 3 and episode 7 have the same director, and Alex the episode 5, 4 and 5 had the same director as well. So you've got kind of a clear pattern there, I think. So we're definitely going to find out what happened on Brendok next week, and that's going to be really cool.
Yes,
it's going to be probably very bad what happens, but it's going to be cool to find out, and we're going to get a sense of like why Vernestra might be in a hurry to cover all of this up.
It's got to be bad if like there was literally 3 or 4 scenes in this episode alone where Sol was about to say something and then got cut off.
I
mean, one Jedi tried to kill it. One Jedi killed himself rather than like admit what happened. So something.
And then at the end, he's like, "All right, I'm going to tell you everything." Cut away. I'm like, "All right, well, we gotta wait."
It's like, God damn it, we want to know. It's kind of like it reminds me of the show Gavin and Stacey, where there's a running joke about like 2 characters going on a camping trip, and they always try and whenever it's mentioned, there's always like little allusions to it, and that makes you go, what the hell happened there? And then it never gets resolved. It always gets cut off at the opposite. It's kind of what's happening with Brendok here.
What if we just never find out?
Yeah, it reminds me one tweet that Alden posted about before that Sol told Osha, like, I'm going to tell you about Brendok. It's sort of like, for those watching who watched Game of Thrones, Ned Stark telling Jon Snow, like, I'm going to tell you about your mother, and then he leaves and he dies, so he never tells him.
When we next meet, We'll talk about your mother.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's perfect.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think they talked about her mother. I don't think so.
Nope.
No, yeah, they didn't.
Yeah,
just a lot of pain. I guess he just kind of lost his head with the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is that like a literal joke, Don? Like, did he actually get beheaded? I don't even know what we're.
Oh,
Oh.
I should have spoiled that.
Spoiler.
Okay.
Oh no!
Yeah, this show's a decade-old
Don,
episode.
I know.
Care.
I mean,
Was that
Sean Bean.
Was that a red wedding death or was that pre-red wedding?
Pre-red wedding.
It was pre-red wedding. I won't say anything about the red wedding. I will simply say that I watched that.
We got the red wedding last week.
Don, I'm just gonna say right now, I don't care.
No, you shouldn't. You should not care.
I should. I heard the whole like, oh, he'll lose his head. And I'm like, I feel like this is like a literal joke. Like,
I was going for like my Nemec joke with Andor, and I didn't. I wound up spoiling instead.
Okay.
Although I feel like Maggie paid me back with all of and several other people with all of the jokes about Jackie and Yord last week because I was like, this is how it feels.
Yeah. I guess to jump to Soul's side of the story right now, it's a lot of the episode focuses on May hiding as Osha.
Damn.
And I do you think he knew from the very beginning, or do you think certain things had him catching up? Because there was the point, like, how did I not sense that this enemy or this villain or whatever he said was there, or that he was the Sith when they encountered in episode 2, but yet we see him like talking to May as if she were Osha. Mm-hmm. Which was that intentional? Was that not? Was that her, like him trying to like get her to lower her guard down? But there are definitely certain moments where it looks like he's about to say something. It's like, and then the power goes out, or then Coruscant calls him, and right at the beginning of the episode when he contacts Coruscant, he tries to say what happened, and it starts going staticky, and they lose their connection, and we get introduced to another Jedi that we met in this episode, Mog, which is just a great name. It's a great Gen Alpha name.
My name's Mog.
Yeah, which is my winner of the worst theory of the week award, which was that tweet going around that he is a young Sheev Palpatine.
What?
No. Let's just get a slender-looking British guy and just say he's Palpatine with blonde hair.
That was
Have you ever heard of the tragedy?
I don't know if it was real, but someone tweeted it, and I was like, nope.
Fun fact.
No.
The golden rule of online fandom and just online stuff in general, you don't have to tweet everything.
The ability to tweet doesn't mean you're intelligent.
You don't have to say everything that comes into your head and just spout it out there. Some things are better left unsaid.
It's like the guy who said Vader never kill any children.
Oh my god!
That might be the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard.
We literally, that guy must have been a troll. There's no way. There's no way that you can watch Star Wars and
what are we gonna do, Master Skywalker?
Yeah, like literally, if that
dude was blind.
Enough, you literally saw him like knocking kids down with the damn lightsaber in episode 5 of Obi-Wan. Like it was like we were all saying, we were all like joking, like, you know, that was one thing weirdly that Star Wars theory was kind of onto there. That was the one time he had a theory that went right, and we were all like, nah, they wouldn't do that. That's too dark.
Remember when his channel was about theories?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Like, remember that?
It actually was at one point, Andrew, and it was actually kind of cool. And then,
I
gotta just mention, since I brought up Star Wars theory, I gotta mention the fact that literally there was a tweet of someone saying, "Oh, how can Qimir
and he was
back together?"
Lol.
And he just put "lol." Dude,
this is your
name is Star Wars theory. Like, are you really telling me you're not even a little curious and you don't just want to like pass out the reasons behind how that helmet works? Like, I was instantly kind of going, like, you know, I was instantly thinking like, oh well, it's a lightsaber, it's a laser thing, so lasers might work differently from a welding tool. Maybe he's got a different metal that he uses to put it together.
Thing called the grift and morals.
Exactly. It's almost like it's a grift, and it's not actually born.
It's almost like money corrupts you,
like the dark side.
Like the dark side.
You think money sets you free, and it kind of does.
One of the emotions and feelings that I wouldn't have been shocked if Qimir brought up later on. But I just want to shout out what might be my favorite non-action scene in the entire show so far, which is that moment Soul has to himself on the ship, where he just lets everything just sinks in, and he just like pounds on the table.
Can we just give Lee Jung-jae an award now?
Yeah,
the dude is amazing. He's fantastic. Like that was absolutely so fantastic. The full spectrum,
fantastic with just showing raw emotion.
Oh yeah,
the full spectrum of grief in his eyes. Like as we see, we don't even need to hear him say anything about Jackie and Yord. Leslie saw how disappointed we all were that we didn't see that gut-wrenching moment in The Last Jedi where Mark Hamill shuts the door and just sinks to his knees, and there's like tears in his eyes over losing Han. And that he feels it's all his fault. She saw us all and was like, "No, I see you guys. I'm gonna do something for you here. I'm gonna do that, but with Lee Jung-jae and the Acolyte." And he absolutely nailed it. His acting has been utterly fantastic the whole season, and he's the reason I'm so invested in Soul. Not beyond the fact that he's just a cool Jedi, with a potentially dark backstory.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't agree more, Don.
Yeah, it was so good. And even just the little things like as soon as he sees May just going in for the hug, which is very like,
and she's like,
yeah, like it's not something you would see with prequel Jedi showing that kind of emotion. Like it was the kind of scene like we always just wanted to see with like Obi-Wan and Anakin, just going for the hug, man. Like you need it.
But Leslie also saw Ahsoka and was like, "Yeah, I see you. You were all annoyed that like Hera and Ezra didn't have like a hug at the end. Here's some hugs. We all love a hug."
That's why I'm telling you, some scenes of the Mandoverse would have been great with Leslie being directly.
She wouldn't have wasted that bottle of Corellian wine. We all know she wouldn't have. Come on.
Or that living waters. I insist.
Yeah,
exactly. You're 100% right there.
Just little things like that's why the ending hug between Rey and Finn and TLJ is one of my favorite Star Wars scenes. It's just the emotion of it all, and you can just tell like how much that moment meant to the both of them. You can tell how much that meant to Soul. Like he needed that right now, even if it wasn't actually Osha.
Reciprocal.
And May was just like, "What the hell is like?" You could just tell.
My headcanon with that scene has always been that Luke was telling Rey that as well. Like when he's talking to Ben, he's also talking to Rey because like you see her eyes open just when she's lifting the rocks, almost like she heard what he said, and it just adds so much to like the look on her face of like acceptance, like the idea that this legendary figure that she looked up to has basically said, "Yeah, you're a Jedi. You're a Jedi. You'll carry my legacy forward," and just it adds to the look of just like contentment that Rey has on her face of like, I know who I am now. I don't need to be a Skywalker or anyone. I'm content with who I am in this place right now because I'm going to carry the legacy of the Jedi forward. Anyway,
and then Palpatine was like, "You sure about that?"
Yeah. Are you sure about that?
Sure about that?
Yeah. Wait till you see the next movie.
Yeah. It's with Soul, like going back to what you were talking about, Andrew, about the whole thing of, when did Soul figure it out? I feel like maybe it was off screen because I feel like probably, or maybe it was just really subtle that I just didn't pick up on it. Because like when we first see them interact and everything, I feel like Soul's just so stricken with grief that he like does not know or does not feel the sort of, probably I would assume, weird force energy of like, wait a minute, you're not who I think you are.
Yeah.
And then I feel like probably once he gets like a little bit calmer is when he's like, something's off.
Yeah.
And then he figures it out. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
I wonder if May will be like, how would you find out, or how'd you know? I'll be curious to see if she asks.
Yeah, maybe he has his the Jedi have this kind of Bluetooth sense that they turn off and then turn on, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, that's not my device. Of course, that's a bad comparison, but yeah, it's.
I'm getting a much stronger
They
signal
go to
here.
factory reset.
Yeah, I mean, with Pip, yeah, I mean that might have been the tell right there.
Oh,
that
was. Factory resets it and puts them on a different body, and then right after that, she's like, "I always noticed how you love that droid, even though it's just a machine," and like that's something that only like that is very, very Osha, and for May to just treat it like any other old droid or space iPhone or whatever it is, that would have been
Ben. Yeah,
that might have been it. And then Basil was onto it from the beginning.
Dude, I love
Basil. Yeah,
I knew he would.
I like this little guy.
He's precious. I hope
Basil and Pip were squaring up with May. It was such a great thing. Pip sprayed her in the eye. It was like I love pure Star Wars pulp slapstick.
I love Amanda Stenberg's like little scream she does of like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've like, even though I know it's Amanda, I like forget that it's two different same.
Honestly,
the little mannerisms, the mannerisms they do are fantastic. As each character, it's
like
it's
dude,
really
the scene
good.
in the previous episode where they're hugging, it's like unless you constantly remind yourself like, oh yeah, this is the same person playing two different characters. It's like it's kind of hard to remember. It's kind of hard to not think about that.
Think that there's two of them. Yeah, and that's interesting because some people, of course, whereas it's like, they're acting and whatnot. No, because it's two different characters, and is the way they act. We have to remember these two characters, May and Osha, have gone through this, and it's been 16 years since the Brando incident. So their way of conducting themselves is maybe it is reserved, or at the same extent is kind of guarded. So it fits what the story would be. The story would be from the moment we saw them and Brenda to this point. So it makes sense.
Yeah,
totally.
You have both of. I was just gonna say both of them like before last week had like wondered because both of them up until a couple days prior thought the other had been dead for 16 years.
Yes.
Exactly. So just that reaction of what am I going to do when I see them for the first time? And I mean, Osha, the 2 or 3 times she saw her beforehand was like, oh, get the stun gun out. But
it's so interesting because again, we've got the contrasting views and how it keeps getting flipped on its head. The first time May sees Osha, she responds with vulnerability. She goes, Oshi? Whereas Osha responds because she misses, but she tries to stun May both times. Well, she stuns her successfully in the previous episode, but she responds arguably with violence each time, which is kind of interesting when she says to May, you're the violent one, because May obviously has been very violent in the story, but it's interesting that Osha is the one to respond with violence. Even when they hug, Osha responds again, trying to restrain May and arrest her, again responds with violence. And it's really, I love that we keep having these kind of contrasting things of how they are so alike in so many ways, but they don't understand what it is that the other wants to some respect. And I think that's what makes it really interesting that they have now traded places, and we're seeing May potentially have her we're seeing May potentially have her preconceptions about the Jedi challenged just as Osha is, because May has changed not only
physically but potentially ideology as well.
Yeah, because May has literally been trained by Qimir to see the Jedi as just scum, like these just lower tier selection of beings that it's okay to kill off because they're Jedi, they don't matter, they're just they they shut themselves off from like emotion. They're not like true followers of the Force. It's kind of a similar thing. Sorry, is what like the Path of the Open Hand ultimately kind of adopts with regards to some of the Jedi in Phase 2 of the High Republic. Hate the Path of the Open Hand. But it's just really interesting that we're seeing May interacting with Sol and how she's seeing this Jedi Master that she's basically grown up hating, responding to her with like thoughtful introspection and even kindness. So you could argue that even when Sol is hugging who he thinks is Osha, he might even then have already figured out that it's May, and because he wanted to save both of them. He wanted both of them to be saved. He wanted both of them to be trained as Jedi. For whatever reason, we don't know what the reasons were that they were there on Brendok, but very clearly he felt those children were in danger and he wanted them to be trained in the Force because it worked so well for him. So why not them? And we're seeing that, you know, he wanted to save May, and seeing her now, it's like it's all of that stuff coming rushing back to him. Like, and so I could kind of see that. I could kind of see him like having figured it out earlier, but I think you're right that it was the Pip thing that kind of tipped him off like fully.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting point you make, Don, because it's all these episodes. Most of this episode, we have the both perspective, May and Osha, and I found really interesting that in the previous episode, what we saw from the point of view of Qimir, what he said about like it's what the Jedi would call a Sith, and that makes me think that like you guys said, he is not. There's a Sith master that he was trained or he whatever, but the important thing is that he's challenging the preconceptions that Jedi might have. That it is the way, our way, or the highway kind of way. Like a dichotomy. It's like either you are a Jedi or a Sith, where there are different ways to express the Force or the thread or what they call the Force on other.
And Qimir kind of like hints at that by there's more than one way to dip into your power.
Exactly.
And he was like, that you have several emotions: fear, anger, loss, desire. And Osha goes, those are feelings of the dark side, and he just goes semantics, which I saw some people not like that line. I kind of liked it.
I like it that he's so glib, but I like that he's glib because Palpatine would respond with like this very kind of like philosophical, good as a point of view, Anakin. Whereas
Qimir's like, that's the dark side. He's like, glib. But like, who cares? Like, who cares what side you
From my perspective, it's the good side. You know, it's like the whole kind of thing from my point of view, the Jedi are evil thing that Anakin will later espouse. But I think Noor-Hal's absolutely right that like, I think he was a Sith apprentice, but he was cast out by his Sith master, and now he is sort of in that limbo. He's not really, he's not fully a Sith, but he is a Darksider, and that might be where the whole Kylo Ren theme being kind of present in the previous episodes is coming into play here. Because I don't know, I'd be surprised as much as I love how the fandom has just completely taken to Qimir. I will be surprised if Qimir makes it out of the season alive. But if he does. That could mean it could mean that he becomes the progenitor of what we see as the Knights of Ren, because like we do kind of need to know where they came from, and if that's the case, I really hope we see like the actual like group show up later on. I've been championing them to appear in The Mandalorian like since season 2, because like it just makes so much sense, and it would be so cool to see Mando fight them kind of like he did with the Praetorian Guard.
I think if Qimir doesn't make it out, I do think that. Because I was against the May and Osha are going to swap, and Osha's actually going to be the Acolyte theory that was going around. I'm starting to think that might be the case. And by the end of the season, Osha will be Qimir's apprentice.
Yes.
But I do think if he doesn't make it out alive, I have 3 suspects of who's going to do it. The 2 twins and Vernestra. And if Vernestra does it, if that theory of her being the master or his old Jedi master is true, that's her way of covering up. Like, oh, my apprentice became a Sith. No, he didn't. What apprentice? He's gone. So
I have heard rumors, because obviously there's the whole thing. Like some people think that he might be the apprentice of Darth Tenebrous, and this is a really deep cut in terms of Legends, but I've
We
heard
make
that
Darth Icky canon in this show.
I
don't
was
know
gonna
why. I
say-
just thought of that. That was
That's
so
just great.
stupidly funny.
It is funny. I was going to say that, like, Darth Tenebrous apparently in Legends had a second brief apprentice called Darth Venomous who could float. And I at first I was like, yeah, that's probably a deep cut. But then I thought, Venomous, Venom. I just thought that was like, I almost wonder if that's a little in joke, because there is some Marvel kind of crossover here, like, because we have that scene that you alluded to earlier on, Andrew, about Vernestra talking to a contact in the Senate about that senator pushing that bill to overview the Jedi, and that had a lot of overtones of Captain America Civil War with the Sokovia Accords. Alex from Star Wars Explained, by the way, did a great video on it. You guys, anyone listening to this, definitely go check that out. It's a really, really cool kind of showing the cross-pollination of ideas between Civil War and the Acolyte. It's just really cool stuff.
Vernestra
yeah, exactly. And it shows how we probably will end up in Phantom Menace by, like, like how the Jedi can't interfere in the goings on Tatooine, because this is almost like, I didn't even think about this. This is basically Leslie addressing that long-held, like, critique that a lot of people did of Episode 1 back in the day, of like, why don't the Jedi just kind of like show up to Tatooine and free all the slaves? Like, she's kind of showing that, like, well, yeah, they used to do that, but there's consequences to that kind of stuff. There's,
bad stuff. Oh, I didn't come here to free slaves.
Yeah,
because, like, literally,
but like,
yeah. It is so screwed up.
I like the Tenebrous theory, and I think it has more validity to it if this planet is Baldemnik, because it's connected to him and Plagueis in Legends.
Oh yeah.
So if it's like, oh, this is where my master is or used to be, and I'm just hiding here now, it would be cool. Again, my one wish I have with Qimir is just give us a Darth title at some point before the season ends. I need a new one.
Venomous would be pretty cool.
Long.
I'm just saying.
Venomous would be cool. Yeah.
I guess I'm.
Are you thinking it'd be like a little bit like the Futurama, like Darth Sith Wars reenactors, where they're like Darth Erderer? That kind of thing.
I just think here's the thing is I think it might be coming because they haven't announced any figures for the Stranger yet, and I'm wondering if they're waiting to do it until his
reveal the name.
Full name is revealed.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah,
because like Osha's figure didn't get announced until after the first episode.
Because
they just had Maze, because they were still like, oh, it might be the same character.
Yeah.
That we were all just like, yeah, May and other May.
Let me just check the subtitles there. Yeah. I have to add in very quickly, because you were mentioning about Arcto and Baldemnik. I think that it's very intentional. I do think it's Baldemnik, but I think it's very intentional that visually this planet is very similar to Arcto, because what
I think Leslie said that on purpose.
I think she says it. She says it. I believe in her interview with Maggie about Maggie's interview with her. Sorry, like it was very deliberate parallels, and I think it's very much kind of calling back to The Last Jedi, or calling ahead to The Last Jedi. Because what Luke is doing in that movie is he's trying to teach Rey that the Force is bigger than the Jedi, and that the Jedi don't have a monopoly on the Force. And that is all part of his somewhat fatalistic worldview at the time, that the Jedi kind of need to go away because it would benefit the Force. But it's kind of like with Qimir here, what he's doing is he's also trying to teach that same lesson to Osha, but it's more kind of narrowed in on, like, the dark side is here, and the dark side is great. Come to the dark side. We have cookies. We have cookies and buff dudes who like to skinny.
I do also really like the concept of having two lake, mountain, green planets, that one has deep connections with the Jedi and one has potential deep connections with the Sith. I think both have a really cool concept.
Both have little creatures that wander around there.
Yeah.
I should have nominated those for. That's another thing.
I will say though, I kind of do hope it's Octo, because if any Star Wars creator would be like, yeah, we're putting Octo in here, it would be Leslie Headland. Or like, some of the other ones would be like,
these are the little baby things of that giant walrus thing that Luke milks. I saw plenty of people joking about that, and I just couldn't not bring it up.
Phallus sirens.
Oh my goodness. I always think that's so funny, and I love that so many people threw a fit over it. Like, what is this doing here? Why do we have to see him milk it? Ugh.
He's a farmer, man.
He's a farmer.
Exactly. He's got to get that moisture somewhere.
Yeah.
He's got to get milk somehow.
We don't know what Qimir is subsisting off on this island. It could be anything.
Well, he was like, "Oh, Osha, you hungry?" at the beginning of the episode, and it's like we didn't see what the meal was. Could have been that. We don't know. I would have died laughing if it's just shot for shot a remake of him like with the giant spear killing the fish.
Oh yeah, like look.
That's brilliant.
But we get, going back to the two of them, we get one of my favorite scenes in the episode. Sorry. But it's related to that, where they're having that conversation about the dark side, and Osha at this point I think still has Qimir's saber, and he keeps poking the bear. He keeps going for it. It's like, oh, why aren't you a Jedi anymore? It's like, oh, it's like, no, why aren't you a Jedi? And then she immediately snaps. It's like, oh, because I failed. Boom. Saber to his chest.
Yeah.
Such a cool shot. And it mirrors perfectly the last scene in the 4th episode where it's Qimir doing that to Osha. And now the roles are reversed.
Yeah.
And again, it's more like, if Qimir was really like trying to defend himself, it would be, oh, no, you're done.
Yeah, he just tenderly puts his hand on Osha's arm, and that's the kind of thing. How is there this much tension, like emotional tension in a scene where she's holding a lightsaber to his throat? It's crazy. It's so very well done that you can kind of like get that vibe, and it's just a really interesting dynamic between these characters. And also, since you mentioned episode 4, Andrew, it's really interesting that May, the seeming dark sided twin, the lightsaber she ignites is yellow. And the lightsaber that Osha ignites for the first time is red. So it just shows that.
Does May still have that saber?
I don't know. I think she might have.
Episode.
I think she might. Because I have a very strong feeling that we will either see Osha and May either duel Qimir. I don't know if that's going to be the case though. Or maybe they duel him, or maybe they duel his master, whoever that is. Maybe it's Tenebrous, or maybe it's someone else. Maybe
we gotta have one or two more.
Mm-hmm.
We can't
the power of 2. We're getting the power of 2 at some point.
He said that too. It's like, what do you want? And he was like, oh, the
power of 2. Wow.
Again, that's
again. I went Master and Apprentice, but it's also like very heavy Sith ideology there.
He wants someone to kind of like share his. Yeah, exactly. And there is that connection in terms of the dark side between the witches and the Sith, because the witches very much kind of allude to using some form of like magic or force ability that was kind of seen, maybe is just seen or construed as like a dark side ability. They say that, some think our abilities dark, unnatural. There's definitely a lot of crossover there. And
unnatural, you say?
Yeah.
Wonder what that could mean.
No idea.
No, that's one of my, I think, going off on that thought, one of my favorite little things that Star Wars has done recently has just sort of like made, just sort of kind of taken that sort of, what's the word? That sentiment of like, oh yeah, the darkness frees me and whatnot. That perspective, just seeing how many lines you can create out of that sentiment is cool. Where it's like he says, when you lose everything, that's when you're finally free. And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know about that.
It's like the dark parallel to what Jackie was telling Osha in episode 4 about like how we're defined by what we survive. Like, and again, that calls ahead so much to like
that didn't work
Obi-Wan.
out for you, Jackie. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, it was like it seemed like a prophetic kind of like thing of like what Osha is in fact going to go through, how she's going to have to survive losing like so many of her friends. And again, I didn't even mention Yord and how the fact that Yord. Despite the fact that Qimir brought up that he arrested Osha during their first meeting, Yord cared for Osha very clearly because he went against everything he believed in to go back, and because he laid down his life. He literally laid down his life out of care for Osha, and that's very kind of like
your friendship with Jackie would have been hollow. It's like, no, like from what we've seen very clearly, that would not have been the case.
Exactly.
And it's just there's so many layers to the conversation.
Yeah, but I feel that's again the perception of Qimir. Like, Jackie would have not reciprocated that, but that's based on maybe if he was a Jedi, he didn't find that circle of friends or people that cared about him. We don't know yet, and that's really interesting because to find that out.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's really true. What was his support system, if anything?
Exactly. And that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that maybe if he was Vernestra's pupil, because again, when he talks with Osha about who did that scar to him, because Osha takes an interest in the scar.
Someone that threw me away.
Someone that threw me away. He doesn't say a Jedi. He says that he was trained as a Jedi, but he never says that a Jedi did that.
A quote really long time ago.
How old is this man? That's my question.
I don't know. Like,
he doesn't look that old.
No. But also, dark side manipulating how you look, all that. Well,
and that kind of makes me think that season 2 could be about Qimir, because again, this series has really kind of like given him the push. And
that's if he's not like probably killed. Who knows?
I mean a prequel about how Qimir fell to the dark side. Because if he is Vernestra's pupil, then that basically gives us the chance to go however many years back. Maybe with a Vernestra that is more like the High Republic books. Because remember, Leslie said that she wanted to save some High Republic book characters for season 2. And that would make a lot of sense if Vernestra is a more central character for season 2, and it's about her and Qimir's kind of like master apprentice dynamic, and we see like how she wasn't able to kind of get through to him the way that she was with Imri, and like tempt him away and keep him away from the dark side, that how he was fully seduced by that. I think that's very possible, because it would be a separate story. You wouldn't have to watch it necessarily. It wouldn't intrude in completely on the story of the first, but it would be very kind of Star Wars to flashback and be like, oh look, here's how this prominent scary darksider fell in the first place.
I did see a very dumb theory again.
Nice.
It was, I think Qimir is actually Imri. And I'm like, guys, it's just concept art, but I'm fairly certain Imri's white. So, like, that's no, stop right now. Speaking of other stupid things, the Jedi on Kofar drove me nuts. Where they're like, oh yeah, it was the bugs that killed them, and then they go and they see the wreckage, and we just get maybe the most effed up shot in Star Wars history of Jackie's corpse just lying there in Yord's neck. It's like that. That and Snoke corpse in TLJ are like, dude, they're just not hiding.
Snoke is whatever. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but
funny. Jackie, I always thought it was funny. Like
Jackie, I was like, I saw me was like, Leslie calling up Daphne. It's like, oh, we need you for one more scene. It's like before, and it's like, there you go.
What have I done to deserve that? Like, you've got enough out of me.
Yeah,
that was brutal.
When Vernestra observes that, I think she referred to it as a fallen Jedi did this, or someone powerful in the Force did this, because it's all lightsabers that killed them, except for Yord. But we're not going to talk about that. And the Jedi immediately go to Master Soul turned to the dark side. And
my god.
It doesn't help Soul's case that as soon as they land on Kofar, Soul's like, all right, go into hyperspace because I stunned May.
He's inopportune timing with the hyperspace jump.
But
I'm so worried. I'm so worried now that they started saying that.
And this is why I'm like, Vern, what are you doing? Because she clearly is sensing something, and it may not have been Soul, but she doesn't say anything to be like, no, it wasn't Soul.
Yeah.
She's like, oh.
Soul said,
returning.
Soul said he sensed something familiar when he encountered the stranger, where he's basically ironically masked off. So maybe because Soul and Vernestra are friends, So he would have met her Padawan.
Yeah.
He wouldn't know what he looks like fully grown, but he would have met her Padawan. So it's
sense.
very, I think.
I don't remember the exact wording.
I think she says that's a strong accusation. She doesn't she doesn't say she agrees, but she simply says that's a strong accusation. She doesn't dispel it. And that's troubling because that kind of makes me worried that Sol will wind up taking the fall for this. And, you know, there's the answer for why the Jedi don't investigate further into like possible ideas of Darksiders, because you got a scapegoat right there, unfortunately. Poor heartbroken Sol.
Yeah, and they imagine, like, they keep the legend that Sith hasn't been sighted in a millennia. So
yeah, and obviously I've got to mention the light whip. That the light whip comes out shortly afterwards, and it looked very cool. It was so brief, but it was really cool, and it looked great.
I remember the line. They asked her, and she was like, "Oh, what is this?" And she said something to tip the scales. So I think she knows that it's something deeper, but she's not saying anything.
Or do we know if she's even quite sure?
I don't know, but I think she knows that something might be up, and it might be something that she knows that she maybe could have stopped in the past.
So the thing is, do we think
that's the story of the Jedi for you?
Mm-hmm.
Do we think? Because I think that it's stronger the more I think about it, of her being Qimir's master, Jedi master, that is. But I do kind of wonder if, like, are we going to kind of like see Vernestra basically have to tell the truth about this at the end? Because, like, I get the feeling that whatever that bill that senator is passing is going to go through, and that explains why the Jedi are more kind of enthralled to the Senate, and why we kind of have them being pressured into the Clone Wars as generals in the prequels. And it would make a lot of sense if, like, Vernestra did in fact train Qimir, and through encountering him in the finale and possibly defeating him, it would very certainly neatly wrap things up. It would be very kind of easy for her to assume, oh, he's my pupil, he fell to the dark side because of me. He's not really a Sith, he was just misguided, he lost his way. I'm going to come clean about this and tell the truth to the Jedi Council, who would be obligated to inform the Senate. And then you've got the whole explanation of why the Jedi have become more compromised, and thus the Sith's plan to kind of like weaken the Jedi by tying them to the Republic more and more grows just a little bit, just progresses a little bit more there.
Yeah. I do think that they may be like laying the beginnings of Sol's reputation crumbling, whether or not he like makes it out of the season or not. But like, I could see him taking the blame, and even if it's like because of the Brendock stuff and because of its guilt, being like, yes, it was me, and Vernestra just keeping her secret to the grave. I think there's various different ways that this could go. And I don't know. Me, like, knowing that it's not Sol, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, stop this. It's the freaking prequels all over again.
Yeah.
But whether or not we get the truth, I mean, whether or not they learn the truth or not, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But speaking of the truth, we alluded to earlier, when Sol kind of has May, restrained so he can tell her everything, his words, and I think that's going to lead into next episode, and I think it's just going to be Sol telling May everything, and then we're going to see the flashbacks. Again, I'm very, very curious to see what happened on Brendock, like what is going to have gone down, and it has to have from the way that Sol is just it killing him every single time he even has to think about it or begins to get the chance. It's got to be bad. Like a lot of the narrative stakes and like the weight of the narrative of this season is going to rely on next week's episode.
Indeed.
Because if they don't like hit a home run with some of this stuff. It might make a lot of the things in hindsight just be like,
yeah.
So,
like you don't want people going,
big.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Rather than like, oh shit, that's what happened. I trust Leslie and the creative team to nail whatever the twist is, because whatever it is, it's pretty big. There's stuff's gonna go down. Like I get the sense maybe Kelnarker was like mind controlled by the witches at some point, because you see him like lumbering toward, like leaping at poor Padawan Torben, like who's stumbling back. So I think that maybe happens. That maybe explains why Kelnarker is like he goes into exile and he's just obsessively scribbling the symbols down. I think that's very possible. I also have to mention the closing scene of the episode, which is Osha finally being tempted into putting on that helmet. This transgression of like, she's been eyeing that helmet up the whole 2 episodes, and finally she kind of puts it on, and there's that kind of almost like kind of shuddering of breath, kind of like Darth Vader. I mean, obviously, it's very different context, but this is all arguably equivalent a little bit to that certain scene in Saltburn.
Yeah, and we learned that it was a sensory deprivation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like
I think Alex really even also brought up like, oh, this could be like a mini version of the Dagobah cave.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, what is it? What's in the cave? Only what you bring with you.
Only what you take with you. And that makes me think that Osha is going to experience what happened on Brendok as well. She's going to link with her sister.
The Cortosis helmet.
Yeah, because she's had visions. She's been shown things through the Force before when she's been connected to it. And that's not really been her sister connecting with her. It's just been her own subconscious reaching out in the Force, trying to like talk to her about what happened back then. So I think giving herself that kind of sensory deprivation experience with the helmet is going to open her up to the Force, and she will start to learn what happened on Brendok, and
hopefully not to the dark side.
Oh no, it's the onslaught of stuff there, because she's getting it all at once. It's probably going to help kind of shift her towards the dark side, and that's where I think the whole tip the scales kind of comes in.
Probably going to help Chimir's case.
Oh, it is definitely going to help Chimir's case, whatever it is. She's going to be like, "Oh, I see kind of what you were on about there, buddy."
Like,
you were right.
Like,
this episode ends
vulnerable.
It ends in a way where both of the twins are vulnerable, but both might be starting to go in the other direction that the other was in when they started.
Yeah.
Whereas Osha is going closer to the dark. May is starting to potentially open up and see what the real truth is, or see Soul's perspective. Because now that she's seen kind of like how human and raw in emotion that Soul has been, that might be starting to change her mind of, oh, the Jedi just brainwashed Osha. Now it's like, well, no, like her master very clearly cares for her. And Qimir is using that as a weapon towards Osha. Like Soul's care for Osha, he is using against her. And it's like, oh, he found you not because of his skills in the Force, it's yours. And I think if this using the helmet not only awakens or like allows for Osha to see the full truth and allow Qimir to warp that into his perspective and his narrative to get her closer towards the dark. But if that's also what gets her to unlock her skills in the Force again, that would be very intriguing. I think there's many different directions that next week can go, and I'm very excited to see what happens there. But it's going in places I wasn't expecting. I'll say it that much.
Yep.
Like, I would not have expected an enemies to lovers fresh new ship to like just rise out of the depths like the Flying Dutchman from Pirates of the Caribbean, but here we are. And
I would have expected the two central characters to switch. Well, presumably switch in terms of their ideology.
Yeah.
Allegedly, yeah.
It's kind of nice to have like a Star Wars showrunner who actually is kind of into exploring ships, or like playing with the idea of like ships in a way previous showrunners might not have. Cough, Dinbo, cough.
Yes.
Let it out.
Yes, like I said, there's so much potential that you can explore with these characters, and it depends. Of course, I'm not complaining at all because we had really nice. In the case of Dembo, we had really good moments, and I've seen all how those moments can be expanded by fan fiction and such and fan art, but it's really nice to have a creative that takes that and expands on live action, and that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. They're very clearly leaning into it, and I think they knew what they were doing with these scenes, and whether or not it ends up being a romantic relationship, it's definitely it's a very twisted version of Master and Apprentice that we might be seeing here. Like again, it's a more vulnerable version of Palpatine with Anakin, and it's just again I wanted to allude to that moment earlier when Osha had the lightsaber at Qimir's chest. It was very in my mind that, are you going to kill me? Like after Anakin finds out about Palpatine, like if Palpatine like truly felt threatened, Anakin would have been dust at that point. But he didn't, because he knew he could turn that in his advantage, and he knew at that point, the minute Anakin, like his eyes flickered when he mentioned you could even save the ones they cared about from dying, he knew right then there he had Anakin. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know what the moment would have been yet, but I feel like Qimir feels like he has that with Osha already. And whether that's just her not like immediately not killing him in the water. He's like, oh, what's the difference between killing me now and killing me in the heat of battle? And she's still like, oh, you murdered my friends, you murdered Jedi, you murdered children. But again, I mean, we had a very similar thing with Rey and Kylo, where Rey literally watched Ben kill her father figure and his literal father right in front of him, and she was able to form the connection and eventually turn the light. I don't think that's what we're getting here. I don't think Osha is turning Qimir to the light side. I think it's going to be the other way around.
In the dark.
Dude is saying, this man is not getting redemption. Let me tell you that much. This man is pure evil. But I love it. I'm a big fan of everything Manny's doing here. And again, we were all wondering, like, why? Because she was like, oh, I only wanted Manny for this role. I was like, why is Jason from The Good Place fit for this role? And once we find out more and more, we're like, oh, now I get it. It's the Danny DeVito meme. It's like, oh my God.
Manny Jacinto should be getting cast in as many action comedy roles as possible. This dude has such presence, such like he does such brilliant stunt work, and he's so consistently funny. Like this guy should be getting like all the kind of like action comedy roles that we usually see for like dudes like Ryan Reynolds and stuff. No shade to those guys, but Manny Jacinto is on that level in terms of like wisecracking and just like able to switch tones.
Last week,
he's fantastic.
Hello, like midway.
Hello.
Like, it was really chilling, but also fun as hell. The dude is great, and I can't wait. And I'm just like, I was like, they kept cutting to Osha, like looking at the helmet. I'm like, she's gonna put it on, isn't she?
She's gonna put it on,
and then she does, and we're like, oh boy, very interesting.
She's been drawn to that's what I think is really interesting, because I saw someone bring up a parallel that May has such fear of Qimir that she's instantly terrified the minute she realizes he's on the planet and is constantly trying to get away. Osha is rooted to the spot. She's interested. Yeah. She's drawn to this dark side.
She has the ability or the alleged option to escape. He's like, oh, you can. The ship's right there. It's just, you got to swim, and the tide's coming. So it's like you could escape, but like you can't. But like Osha's like, she's staying put. Like she's still like drawn to him in some way. Enemies to lovers ? So like we'll see. We'll see. So a lot of interesting things happening this week. I just want to shout out Lee Jung-jae again for just killing it like he has every single week. And I'm just the big things for me is like, one, I didn't realize villains could get this hot, and then two, Vernestra, I don't trust you. What happened?
She's sus, and I can say Soul as well was kind of sus at the end when he had just a little bit, but yeah, maybe
you
that's.
can tell he's not proud of what happened, but I don't think this story is gonna make him look good.
It's almost like a confession. It's like him going to confession, like he's Matt Murdock or something. Very much kind of like wanting to unburden himself of this terrible sin him and the Jedi seem to have committed there on Brendok, which is just, it's going to be so fascinating to see how that plays out. And I hope we get a bit more of like, fingers crossed we get a bit more of Jodie Turner-Smith as well, because she was utterly fantastic. I'd love to see a little bit more of her, even if we might have to see her die, which would be terrible.
We might see more of Don and I thinking that Coral's up to something too.
Yeah.
With a suspicious Darth Maul looking face.
Oh yes.
Again, Star Wars.
Star Wars is not subtle. Star Wars is not
subtle at all.
No. But I think we can wrap things up here. Thanks again to Noor-Hal for joining us this week. Lot to discuss, lot to unpack, and it's only going to get more crazy from here. But yeah, thank you for joining us. And where can everyone find you these days? And just thanks for coming on.
No, thank you guys. I really appreciate talking to you about Star Wars. Thank you for the invite. You can all find me on I keep calling it Twitter. I'm not gonna call it X.
We all call it Twitter.
No. What else is it called?
Yeah,
it's like
the place formerly known as Twitter.
The artist.
And you can find me at Noor-Hal. And you can see there I have a link tree on my bio. You can see my different social media handles. So yeah, definitely if you like to talk about Star Wars, hear me ranting about or read me ranting about football and sports and Taylor Swift and whatnot, there you go. So thank you so much for having me, guys.
Perfect. Conor, how about you?
Hell yeah. Twitter at @banana, where I talk Star Wars, but I also talk this guy who is my title because he's a legend. I love him, and I might see him in person in like next week when I go to the bank.
Awesome.
If
rooting for you, buddy.
Rooting for you.
That injury scared the shit out of me. If you were watching or listening and you saw me leave early, yeah, I was filled with dread that Bryce Harper was going to be out for like 6 to 8 weeks.
And you were like,
I gotta go.
Broke away from the conversation, just like Yord's neck.
Ah! All right, continue.
I'm hurting myself here with this shit.
God damn it. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @banana. You can find me on Instagram at ConmanJFO, where I also talk Star Wars, but mostly Phillies. Where else? Here, duh. Over at the Nerd Academy podcast, where I co-host with Jared the Dark Jedi, and I talk, unsurprisingly, Star Wars. You can find us there you can just Google Nerd Academy podcast, and the website should pop up. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, podcasts, yada, yada, yada. Pretty much wherever you listen, you can find us. If you don't, send us an email, and we'll try to get on the platform that you listen to. But I assume most podcasts are pretty easy to find everywhere. In a Galaxy Trivia. Yeah, I write trivia questions, and I co-host over at the Star Wars in a Galaxy Epic Confrontations Fan Trivia League. You can find our Twitter at In a Galaxy Trivia, and you can find all past and future matches over at the Star Wars in a Galaxy YouTube channel. I also write Star Wars fanfic, but the site's not up, so I'm just gonna wait till it's up to plug that. So
yes.
All right. Donovan.
So you can find me on Twitter at Donovan Mead, where I like to tweet Star Wars, and also the fact that for the first time I'm recording this episode under a different government in the UK. Yay! Hashtag Tories out. Bye-bye. You can also find me on TikTok at Donovan McComish. Instagram, you can find me at Donovan_McComish. Threads, I have the same handle, Donovan_McComish. And Blue Sky at Donovan McComish. .bsky.social. Like Connor, I am also a question writer for Inner Galaxy Epic Confrontations. Like you said, you can click the if you search us on YouTube, you can find the our litany of past like matchups between different Star Wars podcasts, YouTuber personalities. It's really cool, interesting matchups. If you like Star Wars trivia, you should definitely check it out. And I'm also, like Connor and Amy, Andrew, a bunch of people from the Star Wars Editor Discord server. I am also a writer for Star Wars Editor Fiction, a series of fan fiction stories that connect together and try to stay within what's canon. We also like to take a bit of stuff from Legends, kind of like Leslie and her team at The Acolyte have done to great success. The site is currently down, like Connor said.
Leslie,
we're hoping to
join
get it
the
back up
team.
soon. Yeah, we'd love to have you, Leslie. We'd love to talk about Cortosis. And
even though, like, we know legally you probably can't join the team.
Anyway, I have written the one story that came out 2 years ago. It is called Scars of War, and it stars a clone trooper called Blister, who 5 years after fleeing the Empire finds his relatively peaceful existence on the Outer Rim world of Kivo, interrupted by the arrival of a Jedi survivor of Order 66 named Shar Kun. If you like Star Wars and pain, people unpacking their trauma, sharing their own perspectives of like a horrendous event, then yeah, definitely come check it out. It was a lot of fun to write.
Absolutely.
Nice.
As for myself, you can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Starlight Andrew. You can also find me at the StarlightJournal.blog, where I talk about movies. I'm going to talk about Star Wars as well. My June monthly recap will be up probably this weekend, and then I need to see one more movie, and then I'm going to do my mid-year list of what I've seen so far, so that'll be fun. You can follow the pod on Twitter at For the Repub Pod, and on Instagram and TikTok at For the Republic Podcast for further updates on the podcast. Our Twitter is where you will find the Jedi Archives poll once the episode is up, so go ahead and vote there. And then also Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe to our YouTube, all the great ways to support the channel and help the podcast grow. And again, we will be back here next week to talk about episode 7 of The Acolyte, which I'm sure is going to be a barn burner, so I cannot wait for that. And we will be slowly but surely catching up on what we missed while we had to take a little break in May. So Tales of the Empire we'll get to soon, and then we'll be back on the Clone Wars grind very soon as well. So until next time, thank you for joining us. It is coming as well. I love me some Kurosawa infused Star Wars. So thank you guys for joining us. And until next time, for Light and Life, and may the Force be with you. Always. Always.